Hare Krishna. I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. And today I'll be writing and drawing some things over here. The broad topic I'll discuss is that how can we make the new year new? The topic was, don't just change your calendar, you just flip your calendar for new year. You want to change our heart, we want to change our character, we want to change, so new, see if I'm going through life. Now, if I want something new in my life, there are two ways the new can come. One is from outside something new happens, and the other is from inside something new comes. That means saying, we go to a new place, we meet some new people, we do some new things. So people like to travel now. Tourism is a big industry in itself. Why? Because we all have a desire for something new in life. So now, when we want our life to be new, we want our life to be better. At that time, one way is outer situations become better, more and better situations come in our life. And that's important, and we'll talk about that also. But the other side is that from me, something new comes. From me, from within me, something better comes. And in general, all changes that are there, that happen, they are basically a combination of these two. There could be, we could say there are new situations in my life. And while there is a new situation that is important, but what is also important is that I have a better disposition. I have better inclinations, better tendencies, better thoughts. So let's try to explore this a little bit more. Now, with the advancement of technology, our capacity to create new situations has improved significantly. So even I was just a couple of weeks ago, I was in the Middle East, I was in Dubai. And in Dubai, about 20, 30 years ago was just seen as a oil-rich place, that's all. But now it has become a major tourism hub. It become one of the top 10 tourist destinations in the world. And now that has happened primarily by the power of technology. Although it's a deserted area, they are very, very comfortable and flourishing. So technology has this capacity to improve our outer situations in many different ways. So sometimes the weather can become very cold, very hot. Through technology, we can moderate the situations. We can have the temperature regulated through air conditioning, through various things like that. And much of humanity's effort has focused on improving the outer situations. And that is, you could say that's a natural, it's necessary. But at the same time, the problem is that even when we have new situations, if we have the same old dispositions, then it can become a problem. I'll explain with a couple of examples at this point. Let's consider the Bhagavad Gita itself. The Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna. Now, Arjuna, in one sense, was in a very bad situation. The situation he was in was that he had to fight a war. Now, normally, among the situations that come in our life, they can be bad in different ways. So, sometimes bad things happen to us. There are two English words. There is adversity and there is atrocity. How many of you think there's a difference between these two words? Adversity and atrocity. How many of you think there's no difference in the meaning of these two words? Okay. How many of you think the difference does not make any difference? So, see, adversity is when it's a cold night and we desperately need a heater and the power supply goes off. That's adversity. But it's a cold night and we find out that our neighbor has cut off our power supply. That is atrocity. So, adversity is natural. It happens through the course of nature. Atrocity is intentional. Somebody is doing it. So, among these two, which is more difficult to bear? Atrocity. Atrocity. Why did you do like this? So, now there is one more thing which is even more difficult to bear, and that is when we have to do something bad. And life puts us in a situation where we just don't have any good choice. That's what is called as agony. So I was giving this class in America, and one American couple had come for the program. They were telling me after the program, so that how they found the Bhagavad Gita very relevant, and they heard what I was talking about. So what was Arjuna's agony? That Arjuna had two options, and neither of them were good options. That what is one option? He fights. But if he fights, he has to fight against Bhishma and Krishna. And these are his elders. But they are not just ordinary elders. They are the elders who were like substitute fathers for him. Bhishma was the grandfather who acted like his father. And Drona was a teacher who was very close to him. So these were father figures. And they were the people from whom he learned archery. Bhishma taught him informally, till Drona came and Drona taught him formally. These were the people who taught him archery. These are people for whose pleasure he learned archery. And these are the same people he has to kill with that same archery. That's not a pleasant option. But if he does not fight, then what is going to happen? The Kauravas are still going to attack. And if he does not fight, it's quite likely that he might not be able to get the other Pandavas to stop fighting. Yudhishthira may agree, but Bhima will agree. And the Pandavas keep fighting, that without him, the casualties on their side will be worse. And if any of his brothers die, any of their children die, he won't be able to live with himself. If somehow they all decide to stop fighting, Duryodhana will keep persecuting them. And they will constantly be troubled by it. Even if somehow Bhishma, Drona, Bhishma gets him to stop. Okay, you leave the Pandavas alone. But Duryodhana is a mean-minded person. So he will go after all those who have supported the Pandavas. He will go after Drupada, he will go after Virat. And just like the Russia-Ukraine, the war was going on. Now India did not take any side. And because India did not take any side, America targeted India with the disproportionate tariffs. So what happens is that, again, Arjuna is by nature a protector. And as a protector, he doesn't want anyone to be hurt. He wants to stop them from being hurt if they are being hurt. But now because of him they are being hurt, it will be unbearably painful for him. So there is no good option for him. So, this American couple is saying they have two children and two sons. Both of them are very good at basketball. But, so they had an opportunity to send one of them to like an eminent basketball academy to grow. But they had enough money to send only one. What do you do at the time? You send one, the other person will feel bad. You send the other, the first person will feel bad. Or sometimes life puts us in situations where there are no good choices. And that can be extremely painful. So if you see, at the start of the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was confused and discouraged. So there's a difference between confused and discouraged. Confused means I don't know what to do. Discouraged means I don't feel like doing anything. So both of these are a problem. And by the end of the Gita, that same Arjuna, by the end of the Gita, Nashto mohasmriti labdha tvat prasadan mayachyuta sthito smigata sandeva karishye vachinam tava. So what he said, by the end of it, he has become convinced and he has become confident. So now, in his case, did his situation change? No. His situation was still the same, but his disposition changed. His vision of what he was doing, his approach towards it changed. And when we are talking about our life, that we can try to change situations to whatever extent. Human says fighting a war is an attempt to change the situation. So that's important, no doubt. But there's something much more important. That is changing our disposition. So what life brings upon us, that may sometimes be good, sometimes be bad. And if we want the newness and the happiness of our life depend, or we let the newness and the happiness of our life be dependent on the situations that come in our life, then we will always be very vulnerable. We will always be very unstable. We will always be very insecure in our life. So that's why what we will discuss is that, yes, we want good situations, but how can we bring in a better disposition in our life? And in that terms, now what did Krishna do? What was the message of the Gita that led to this change? That's what we'll try to discuss. And I'll discuss this in broadly 3 steps. So when we say change our heart, expand our vision, change, elevate our disposition. So what does that mean? In general, whenever any event happens in our life, any situation comes up once, inside us, based on an event, a story is formed. We actually make an interpretation of the event. Now, to understand this, what I mean by interpretation of an event, see, so suppose nowadays the newspapers or the social media, wherever we get some updates. Now we can get, we can see a photo. Photos are shared on social media, videos, we can get a photo. And we can get a write-up. A write-up is a caption. So it's a description of what is happening. Now, if we get a photo, maybe one person is beating up another person, or one person is falling down, holding their head, one person is about to jump off a hill, something dramatic, something dangerous, whatever we are seeing. So if we have a photo without any caption, without any write-up, then what happens? We start imagining a write-up, isn't it? And that's why the photos, or in many ways, we actually trust our eyes. The seeing is believing, we say. Eyewitness, that's the, in law also we say, aankhon dekhi batein. But the point is, sometimes if we get a picture, we get a video, this is what really happened. Now we see in a video, one person is beating up the other person. And the other person falls back and injured. This person was violent. This person attacked that person. And that's what we see. But maybe what we saw was a 30-second video, and the whole recording is 5 minutes. And all the previous 4.5 minutes, this person was trying to pacify the other person. That person was irritating him, this person was pushing him, this person was hitting him. And then the last 30 seconds is, this person finally retaliates. So what happens? The picture that we see, the picture itself, it's very consuming, it catches the attention. But the picture does not itself tell what happened. We have to infer from it. We have to guess from it. So that's why if a picture is there without a write-up, now of course the write-up has to be accurate also. Somebody gave distorted write-up also. But I'm talking about if there's a visual and verbal, and both of them are together, then we get a more. So what happens is the visual and the verbal. So the visual is more generally emotionally evocative. It triggers our emotions. The verbal, it gives more clarity. Okay, what actually happened? So, not just clarity, you can say clarity or accuracy. We come to know what happened. So, why am I differentiating between these two when we're talking about this? That for all of us, when events happen in our life, the event is more like a picture. And our mind supplies the interpretation for the picture. So now we said, what does that mean? Event has happened. It's a bad event. But let's try to understand this. Say, we experience some kind of loss. Maybe we had a job and we lost the job. Maybe we invested some money somewhere when the stock market crashed and we lost the money. Maybe we had a relationship and the relationship broke down. So there's a loss. Now when the loss happens, the loss happening is like a picture. Now the description, the story around it, that can be of three categories. I have lost. Okay, I had this money, I lost this money. I had this job, I lost this job. That's, you can say, fairly objective. In the Gita language, this is called as sattva. Right? In sattva guna, we try to get some accuracy. But another interpretation could be, I am lost. Now, I am lost means what? Say, if somebody invested a lot of time, somebody invested, say, 3, 4, 5, 6 years in trying to get into IIT. And then they just don't get into it. Or maybe they come to age limit where beyond which you cannot apply for IIT. Suppose it's like that. Then I don't know what I have to do in my life. So I have lost is more of a loss of opportunity. I am lost is a loss of direction. It's a loss of purpose. Which is more damaging? Yes, I am lost is more damaging. It is more demoralizing. So if somebody has invested 5 or 10 or 15 years in a relationship, and then that relationship breaks down, I'm lost. What am I supposed to do? My whole identity was based on this relationship, and now the relationship is gone. So I am lost is much more damaging. But the most damaging is, I am a loser. Now, this is not just a loss of direction or purpose, it's a loss of self-worth. It's a loss of basic self-confidence. I am a loser. Now see, each of these are stories or interpretations provided by our mind. And they will have very different impact. So now, I travel across the world and I speak in universities in America and universities in India. Many times in Indian universities, a couple of us was in IIT Mumbai. So after my talk, one faculty had come there and was telling that just a few days before, one of the students in the final year had committed suicide. Now it's heartbreaking when we hear such news. These are probably the most talented students from India. And what happened? They didn't do as well as they expected in the exam. And they ended their life. Now, okay, not doing it well in the exam is not a good thing. But is it worth ending one's life? No, it is not. What happens if one's whole sense of identity comes from my marks? So if I don't get more marks, it's not just I failed in this exam, but I am a failure. Not just I encountered a failure, but I am a failure. Failure is an event. Failure is never a person. So loss is an event. Nobody is a loser. But when you start thinking like that, then that person takes the final step. Now in America, I have been to many universities, I have never heard of any student, at least American students, white Caucasian students, ever ending their life because of doing poorly in exams. America is a relatively affluent country, and of course there are challenges there also, but the level of competition that is there in India, it is not there in the academic world. Till now in America, I have not met a single person who says, I am jobless. They may not have a job, but the way they say it is, I am between jobs. So, yeah, I have the job, now I'll get another job in the future. So I'm between jobs, like I'm between cities, I'm traveling. It's a very nonchalant. In India, if you come home and tell that your family, I lost my job, it's like somebody died in the family. What? So, now, so there's a certain level of detachment. Now, so even if they say lose a job or lose an exam, it's no big deal. Now that doesn't mean in the West, young people don't end their lives. There quite often, they end their lives much more because of heartbreaks. So it's like somebody has one bad relationship, second bad relationship, third bad relationship. Then that person will start thinking that maybe I am unlovable. Maybe there's something wrong with me and nobody will ever love me. Forever I'll be alone. And all my friends will be in healthy, happy relationships. And I'll be all alone and everybody will pity me. Everybody will feel sorry for me. I don't want to live life like that. Better let me live my life. So, it is that what reason our mind may tell a particular story. That may vary. But the point is, this is the events that happen in our life, they are like pictures. But the description of that is something which we write. Which we, with our mind, or rather, actually we are meant to write, but often our mind writes the description. And the difference between the two, that there is an event and there is an interpretation of the event. I would say, the mind says this is the description of the event. But that need not be the only description of the event. So the mind is supplying the description. So in some countries, if there is a racial tension, religious tension, or ethnic tension, whatever. Like in America, it happened once that in America, there's some places there's a lot of racial tension. So the blacks feel that some of the police are very unfair to them. The police pull them over a lot more than they pull over whites. So now, if there is one event which shows a white policeman attacking a black person, and then that one picture, that one video is seen, and everybody, all the black people get angry, and some white people also get angry. How black people will treat like this? It can lead to riots, it can lead to a lot of violence. So the event is what it is. But that event is assigned a particular meaning. So generally speaking, understanding the difference between these two is very important for us so that we don't overreact. Now, it's possible that we may underreact, it's also possible we may overreact. So life, so this is I've been saying that I'll talk about 3 points. So, the first point I was talking about is the difference between the event and the interpretation, the story that our mind tells about the event. So what are we discussing over here? That how can we bring something new into our life? So for Arjuna, the story he was telling himself, or his mind was telling him is, oh, what kind of greedy person are you, that just for a kingdom, you are ready to kill your grandfather? You are ready to kill your guru? What person you are? Better don't fight, better live like a beggar. Don't kill somebody like this. And I will say, but if you don't kill, they will kill you. Says, they are greedy people. I don't want to be greedy like them. So he was thinking that the war is happening, and the war happening means I am a heartless, greedy person. If I fight, this is what it means I am. And I can fight. So this understanding, this first point is about interpretation. That interpretation, we all do, our mind is constantly doing interpretation of what is happening. So events don't come with a ready-made explanation of the event, a ready-made meaning of the event. What does this mean? So our mind provides that meaning. So, see, when I give a class, my main services is as a public speaker, I travel across the world. Sometimes the audience is very enthusiastic. Sometimes when I'm speaking, the audience is looking at me as if they are watching a foreign language movie without subtitles. And then, when the audience is looking at me with complete blank faces, that is a negative situation. But there could be many meanings of that situation. It could be maybe that I'm speaking in English and the audience understands only Hindi. Maybe I have to speak in that language or I've got a translator. Or maybe I'm speaking too fast and they don't understand it. There could be many reasons why that is happening. But my mind may say, oh, you are a poor speaker. You are not a good speaker at all. You have spoken so many times, but still you have not learned the art of actually catching and retaining the attention of audience. And that's why people don't pay attention. Now, it could be very well that the sound system is not working. Isn't it? And the audience is looking at a blank face because they're not hearing you. But what happens? I may take it as I'm a poor speaker. And if I take it as I'm a poor speaker, then I'll become discouraged. So the event is what it is. But the mind gives an interpretation to the event. The mind tells a story around the event. And often, because we don't differentiate it, what happens? We get over-affected by it. So it's like life will always have its ups and downs. Kabhi khushi, kabhi gum. This is going to happen. But based on the story that the mind tells us, sometimes we become very happy or we become very unhappy. We become very volatile. Something good happens, oh, I am a hero, I am a conqueror. I am number one. If something bad happens, things don't work out as well as we want them, I am zero, I am worthless. I am a loser. And that's how we often have mood swings. So, the mood swings that happen, they are not generally completely arbitrary. We might say that I am just a moody person, or he or she is just a moody person. Well, then to some extent it may be true, but there is a reason behind it. What happens is certain events have happened, and those events our mind has interpreted in a particular way. And that's why sometimes we feel very energetic, sometimes we feel like we shake the whole world. And sometimes it becomes like the whole world cannot shake us from under our bed. From under our blanket. I'm supposed to sleep, I don't want to get out of it. I'm not doing it. So now, this understanding this principle that there's an interpretation that is happening. So I talk about this in 3 parts. We'll try to get an IAS degree today. I don't need to get an IAS. We'll try to understand. Right. So first is understanding that there is an interpretation. Now this interpretation is almost unconscious. That means the interpretation happens without we often being aware of the interpretation. So if I have a lot of insecurity and the audience is not listening to me, I start thinking I'm a terrible speaker. But if I have a lot of ego and the audience is looking blank, I think the audience is dumb people. So it depends on my own disposition, but both of those are unhealthy. Thinking that I'm worthless or thinking the audience is worthless. Both of those are not a way to constructively move ahead in whichever situation. So if we are working with our boss and our boss is giving us too much work, we feel. And we talk with our boss and the boss also doesn't listen to us. They say, hey, I am such a wimp. I am such a useless person. Everybody exploits me. Everybody everybody abuses me, everybody just makes me work hard, I am such a terrible person. This is what my life story is good. So if we are insecure, we'll start thinking that everybody does like that. If we are egoistic, we think this boss is such a terrible person. This boss is not worth being a boss. So when I become a boss, I will teach this boss. So, now, both of those could have truth, but both of those could not be truth. So the point is, there's an unconscious interpretation that's happening constantly. So from there, what we need to move is towards a conscious analysis. That, okay, what actually is happening? So when you are talking about cultivating a healthy disposition, first become aware to understand that my mind is adding something to every event that's happening. Now, once the mind adds something to event, now we want to separate it. So what is the actual event and what is it? Okay, what does it mean? We'll look at it afterwards. So, when Duryodhan in the Mahabharata, that's some sound getting added. So, now when Duryodhan was living in the kingdom, at that time the Pandavas were in the forest, and they were children. And because Duryodhan was in the kingdom, so he started thinking that I'm going to become the next king. Because the Pandavas, whether they come back or not. And he was there, so he was pampered by everyone. And then what happened? The Pandavas came back. Their father passed away, so they came back. So in royal families, there's always a concern that they want to have an heir. We heard this word heir. Heir is like a successor. Who's going to be the next ruler? So now the king and the queen will be concerned about having an heir. And now after they have an heir, they may worry that something may happen to the heir. So then they want to have a spare. Now, the spare is in a very bad situation nonsense. No sibling will want anything bad to happen to their sibling. But unless something bad happens to their sibling, the spare will never become there. So what happened? Duryodhan, he initially thought, I am the heir. But when the Pandavas came back, he thought I have become the spare. So Yudhishthira he thought Yudhishthira is elder to me, Yudhishthira will become the king, and I'll be thrown. Now, Yudhishthira never made a claim that I should be the king. And Yudhishthira never made a claim, certainly, that the whole kingdom has to be mine. Yudhishthira was okay with the kingdom being divided also. So Yudhishthira coming was an event. But from that, Duryodhana made the interpretation that Yudhishthira is a threat to me. And the Pandavas are a threat to me. And then his attempts to poison Bhima, his attempt to burn the Pandavas alive, all that was not so much a reaction to what the Pandavas did, but to what his mind told him the Pandavas would do. So, quite often, when we don't learn to differentiate between the event and the interpretation the mind is doing, so we are fighting a war that doesn't even need to be fought. Something needs to be done, but we are doing something else entirely. And that's where it starts becoming a much bigger problem. So what does analysis mean over here? When we analyze, okay, what? I'll talk about one simple principle for analysis over here. There is what is and there is what if. What is and what if. What if means, what if this happens? What if this person does like this? What if this happens? What if this? So now, the question, what if, sends our mind on a wild imagination ride. Now, of course, sometimes we have to consider the future. So, if I have a job right now, I have some money. Then, if I lose my job, do I have some savings? So, what if I lose my job? So we have to prepare for that to some extent. But there is a what if that is consciously done. And there is a what if that just the mind goes off without our realizing. And we start worrying, what if that happens, what if that happens. That kind of what if does not prepare us, it only makes us panicky. It only fills us with fear. So analysis is about first understanding what is the problem. What is the actual situation? What actually happened? So what is about the present. Now what if can be about the future. What if this happens? What if that happens? So, what if can be about the future? What if this happens? What if that happens? Or what if can also be about the past? If only I had not spoken this way, if I had spoken that way. If only in this exam I had given this answer and that answer. If only I had done this. So, what if? It's worthy to think about it at times. To learn from our mistakes, to prepare for our future. But the first stage is differentiate between the two. What is and what if? So what is the actual situation right now? What is the exact problem right now? This is where it's very important to understand how the mind works. We talk about the disposition we bring into life. So the situation comes upon us, we can't control that. To some extent we can't control it. Sometimes we can. But many times we can't control the situation. When we talk about the disposition, that primarily comes from our mind. So, each of us has a mind that works in particular ways. Have you heard these two words, optimist? And what is the opposite? Pessimist. So, what is the standard example of being optimistic or pessimistic?
Glass of water.
Glass. If you have a glass of water, if you see it half full, then we are optimist. If you see it half empty, we are pessimist. So, if you have a glass of water, if it's half full or half empty, what do we see? Now, this is at one level, everybody will tell you be an optimist, don't be a pessimist. Now, I have a friend who is himself given hundreds of self-help talks and he's attended thousands of talks. If anybody gives an example, is see a glass in half empty, not half empty, and half full. He says, the first thought that comes in my mind is there enough water in this glass to throw on your face? It's such an old, boring example. You've heard it hundreds of times. Now that doesn't mean it's not valuable. But there's an important principle over here. Sometimes we may think that negative thinking is bad. But that is not true. See, there is negative thinking which can also be a gift. The ability to think positive is a gift. The ability to think negative also is a gift. Say if somebody is going to build a skyscraper, there's a barren land and say, oh, we'll build a 50-story skyscraper. It's good, such an optimist you are. Listen. But for that skyscraper to be safe, somebody has to think about what all may go wrong. If there's a fire, is there an exit over here? No, if it collapses, if there's an earthquake, what? Do we have some measures? So basically somebody has to consider what all can go wrong and prepare for it. So some people, their minds naturally think about positive possibilities. Some people's minds naturally think about negative possibilities. And both of these can be assets and both of these can be liabilities. Like some people may think so positive that they don't even think about any danger. There's some scheme comes up, you invest your money and in 6 months your money will become double. Okay, I've got 10 lakhs saving, I'll put all 10 lakhs for it. what if we lose the money? Don't be such a pessimist. No, that's not pessimism, isn't it? So the idea is, in between these two is a realist. So realist is that, yes, the glass is half empty and the glass is half full. Both are true. So both optimism and pessimism are additions of the mind. They are based on the way our mind works. We may add something negative to it, we may add something positive to it. But what is means, first let's look at what it is. So what is a realistic attitude. This is the problem, or this is the opportunity. So once we start with that, so the mind, some people's minds may naturally think about what is wrong or what can go wrong. I have written more than 30 books. So in my writing, there is always a role for editing. Now, there are many people who became famous simply as editors. Of course, authors are much more famous. But there are people who are celebrated editors also. Now, those who are good editors, often they are not very good writers. Not that they can't write, but writing involves more of a creative faculty. Hey, what about this idea? What about this way of saying it? What about this example? Editing is more of a critical faculty. Hey, this doesn't make sense. This is too long. This is just going too round and round. This point doesn't link with that point. So the editor has to see what all is wrong. And now that is also a gift. Not everybody can edit well. Not everybody can edit well. So the idea is that when we are editing, a particular part of the brain is required. And some people are very good editors. Like any project has to be, very big project has to be done. A fundamental role has to be played about risk assessment. And risk assessors have to primarily look for negatives. So now we may analyze to understand what is the default tendency of my mind. That is good. So what is and what if. So among the what ifs, each particular person, based on the nature of their mind, may go in a particular direction. Some people may tend to be very optimistic, some people may tend to be more pessimistic. Now, in general, our mind tends to be pessimistic. And there is a reason for it. And that reason is not that the mind is our enemy. The reason is that in life, how it works, that we can experience both pleasure and pain. However, say let's consider a simple example and we'll build from it. See, if you are going for a forest walk, you're going through greenery, wilderness, and now there might be a beautiful rose flower over there. Now, if we miss seeing that flower, we miss some pleasure. And that's a problem. But if there's a poisonous snake slithering by, and if we miss that snake, then people will miss us. So in one sense, the loss in missing pleasure is not, or loss in missing some opportunity for pleasure is not as much as the loss in missing some danger. Isn't it? The amount of harm that can happen if some danger occurs is far more. And that's why, as a survival mechanism, our mind is more attuned to danger than to pleasure. That's just the nature of the mind. And it's not a bad thing. The problem in our modern, postmodern society is that, whereas in the past, where life was relatively simpler, the danger was tied to some tangible object. If we are living in a village and some tiger comes in, or some invader comes in, then there's a danger. But now, the world we live in is so complicated that tomorrow we may go to office and because of recession, we may lose our job. Now, what is recession? You can't tie recession to a particular sheep. Recently, one devotee told me he had come to Vrindavan for a yatra, and he decided that I will not check any of my work mails. I will completely immerse myself in Krishna. And he went after 1 month back, he went to his office, and sometimes you go, it was not that he was fired, his company itself had shut down. So now here, who can actually anticipate what was, for many of us, the dangers that we have, they are not tied to specific objects. Some are, but many are not. And because of both these reasons, our mind is attuned to think of danger more than pleasure. I can't afford to miss a danger of this. And because now the dangers that we face are not that tangible. So then the mind is always in a state of fear. Maybe there's a danger somewhere, a danger here, danger there. And that's why there's a lot more negative thinking. But the point I'm making is, we separate between what is and what if. So what is the actual problem and what is the nature in which my mind tends to go off? Which what if does my mind take? And once we understand this, we become calmer. So Krishna, in one sense, what he told Arjuna is that this war you have to fight. But you are not fighting this war for you just gaining the kingdom. You're not selfish and you're fighting this war because you want to live in prosperity. You are fighting this war because you want to establish Dharma in the world. That is what I want you to do. There is a higher purpose. A person like Duryodhana, if such a person has been allowed to live and rule without any opposition, then the kind of things he might do is horrible. What Duryodhana did to Draupadi in public, it's not only a horrible thing, but the fact that, see, there will always be predatory men who will try to violate women. But most people will do something like this in some dark alley or somewhere there is no witnesses. That is, there's fear of the law. But if somebody does this in public, that means they have no fear of the law. If somebody goes into a police station or goes into a court and does something like this, then already they have no fear of the law has fear of them. Isn't it? So that was a situation of Duryodhana, that in a place where all the kings, all the Kshatriyas, all the protectors are supposed to be present, he thought that I can do this and I can get away with it. So now, if such a person had unchallenged power, now when the Pandavas were in the forest, Duryodhana knew that the Pandavas are going to come back. And that's why he kept his shenanigans, his evil deeds, he kept them under some restraint. But if the Pandavas completely out of the picture, it caused terror in society. And he had to be stopped. So now the last part is that I talked about I, A,
S.
and S. So S is where our spirituality comes in. So we try to understand that I am doing an interpretation, or my mind is doing an interpretation. So we try to do an analysis to understand the situation. And then lastly, what does spirituality do? I'll talk about this. And spirituality broadly does two things for us. Now, when we say spirituality, what does it mean? There are many different people who may have different ideas about spirituality. So, I was giving a talk in Salesforce, and then a person came to me, my office is a very spiritual place. Why is that? What do you mean? I went to some aromatherapy retreat, and I got this particular aroma. They told me this aroma is spiritual. So I keep that aroma everywhere in my office, therefore my office is spiritual. Now, many times what happens, people equate spiritual with anything which makes them feel good. That if I go to some place and I feel nice, I feel calm, I feel relaxed, say it's a spiritual experience. Well, maybe, Maybe not. Is it somebody very stressed and they take alcohol and they feel very good? Somebody may take drugs and feel very good. So are the drugs finish? So now this point is that we will feel relaxed, we will feel calm, we will feel composed. But that is not what defines spirituality. It's like health, you can define as, okay, there's no pain in the body, my body feels good. But how you get to it is important. Somebody can take pain medication and they can feel very good. But that doesn't mean that. So spiritual is not just about the destination. Spiritual is also about the process to the destination. Nowadays, I was giving a talk in Stanford, and there I was talking about neuroscience and spirituality. So they told me that there they have got a huge research being done, not in Stanford, other universities also, that to develop something called a meditation helmet. What is a meditation helmet? Their idea is that there are many scientific studies which have found that when we meditate, the neural imaging, the imaging of our brain, shows that the brain is in a very calm state. So there are different areas of the brain which are associated with different functions. So if certain parts of the brain are activated, that means the person is in a calm state. Some areas of the brain are activated, that means the person is very worried, very angry, whatever. It's not a very clear correlation, but broad correlation is there. So now they have found that people who meditate regularly, those parts of the brain which are associated with calmness are more developed. So what they are trying to do is develop a helmet, you put it on, and that will have some electrodes and some electrical signals, and that will activate the part of the brain which is associated with calmness. And you will become calm. Now, this is what they think of spirituality only as a destination. So actually, if we want to be calm, we have to decrease our calm. See, our desires are raging wide. I want this, I want that, I want that, and I want that, and there are so many desires inside us. Then those desires are what is going to steal our calm. So they are going to rob us of our calmness. So we cannot have calm simply by putting on some helmet. So often spirituality is reduced to this kind of just somehow get to the destination. It's a process to get to the destination. So what is spirituality about? How does spirituality help us to create a new disposition? So the idea is that if I am here, that see, our existence is three levels. There is the soul, there is the mind, and there is the body. We have three-level existence. This is like a computer system in which there is the hardware, the software, and the user. So all these three together is like the self. So for us, the mind is next to us, and I have deliberately shown the mind to be very big. The mind is actually, once has come, the body is huge, the mind is small. But I have shown the mind to be big because the mind has a big influence on us. Our thoughts, our moods, our dispositions, that is affected a lot by the state of our mind. So now, what the Bhagavad Gita tells us is that next to the soul, there is the super soul. That is Paramatma. Next to the Atma is the Paramatma, that is God. So, spirituality is where we become more connected with the God within us, with the spiritual side within us, than with the mental and physical side. So, as long as our mind is very big for us, our mind has a big impact on us, then whatever story the mind tells, that's what is going to affect us. Say, if we are in college or we are working, and we have two people in our social circles. One person is constantly discouraging us. You know, you got into this job, you're just lucky that you got this job. They're actually not qualified for it. And when you fail, not only will you go down, you take the whole team down. That person is constantly discouraging us. There's another person who is encouraging us. Everybody has to learn things. Everybody makes mistakes, but we all learn from our mistakes. We can grow, and you have a talent. You can develop that talent. So there are those two people. One is constantly discouraging us, the other is constantly encouraging us. Now, we have a choice whom we listen to. Both will be there, but whom do we listen to? So, if we listen to the person who is constantly discouraging us, then we will get discouraged. If we listen to the person who is encouraging us, now encouraging is not the same as flattering. Encouraging means, suppose we go to the gym and we try to lift a 10 kg weight or 20 kg weight. And yes, we can lift 20 and we say, okay, let me try to lift a 21 kg weight. Yeah, we are able to do it. But encouraging is not simply telling you can lift 60 kg weight. Try to lift a 60 kg weight, and after some time you become a 60 kg weight, somebody else has to. So, it depends. Encouraging is not flattering. But there are two voices. Whom do we listen to? So what happens? Spirituality essentially means if we grow spiritually, that means that inside us, the mind's volume becomes smaller, the mind's voice becomes bigger, and God's presence and God's voice becomes bigger. So for most of us, the mind is very big and God is very small. We constantly hear the mind's voice, and every event that happens, the mind's commentary comes up with it. And then we get overrun by it. But when we chant the holy names, when we do kirtan, when we come to satsang, when we do some puja, by all this what happens? God becomes the bigger reality inside us. That God is with me. God is for me. Just as Krishna was there with Arjuna on the chariot, on the battlefield. But as long as Arjuna was looking toward the battlefield, he was becoming more and more panicky. But when he turned towards Krishna, and when he heard from Krishna, he started becoming calm. He started become more composed. So, that does not mean he never turns toward the world and looks at the world. He has to fight, so he has to look. It's not that we shut down our mind completely. The mind is also useful, but the mind can sometimes exaggerate and distort. So that's why spirituality is essentially about when the spiritual becomes bigger than the mental and the physical. So when we start practicing bhakti, the result of that will be our mind's distortions. They will start decreasing. Even if they don't decrease, the effect that they have on us will decrease. And there are two things. The person who is constantly discouraging us, that person itself changes and stops discouraging us. But the other is, the person may be discouraging us, but we don't listen to that person so much. We don't let that person define us. Like going back to the starting point, a loss happens, and the discourager says, not that you have lost, but you are the loser. Now we don't listen to that person so much. Or rather, we listen to the person who is there to encourage us. So Krishna was there with Arjuna on the battlefield. And if we consider the world to be like a battlefield, then our body is like a chariot. And Krishna is there with us, within us. And the more we connect with Krishna, the more we'll find that the ups and downs of life will not shake us so much. So positives will come in our life. When the positive situations come, we will be able to tap them better. When the negatives come in our life, we will be able to tolerate them better. And with that new disposition, actually we can create a new life for ourselves. A new life, a new year, which will be a better year for us. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. Our broad topic was, how to make the new year actually new. How to make it new. So broadly, I talked about
4 points. First was when we talk about the concept of new. New can be in terms of the situations that come in our life, or new can be in terms of the dispositions that we bring into our life.
So now ideally, if both are there, that is the best. But the situations we can't control so much.
In fact, the situations may just be dual, but if our mind is unstable, then we go way up and we go way down. So now what do we do about it? So to have this new disposition, so for this we talk about 3 things. What are the 3 things? I was interpretation. The first thing we need to understand is that our mind is constantly doing interpretation. That whatever happens, if I experience a loss, my mind may say, I have lost. But this kind of objective interpretation is very rare. It's I am lost or I am a loser. So this additional interpretation that is happening, it's like if there is an event, there is a photo of the event, and there is a write-up of the event. There is a write-up about the event. Now what happens is that the photo often it triggers our emotions. Now the write-up gives us a little more clarity about what actually, clarity or accuracy. So what happens often, the events are like the photos. While the events have both of these, but when the events have both of these, our mind often goes only in this direction. It only sees the photo, and then what happens, the mind provides the write-up. And that's how we may end up overreacting to it. So to avoid the interpretation, what do we do? Analysis. So analysis means simple. We separate it into 2 distinct steps. What is the steps? What is and then what if. So what is it simply about the facts? What actually happened? So for example, okay, I lost this particular job. Or I came to this particular place and this person was supposed to come, this person didn't come. Or I have been given more work than my colleagues. That is what is. Now, once we understand the facts, so what is more about the present. What if is about the future or the past. Now in what if also we discuss that there is also, we come to know our mind's default tendency. So default tendency would be that some minds may be more positive, some mind may be more negative. So it's not always necessarily that negative is bad, not necessarily that positive is good.
Yes.
So that what we want is, first is to be realist. Realist means understand what is. And then generally, if our mind tends to be more in the negative direction, it's good if we can find out roles in that direction. So if somebody is very good at finding out there are more critical tendency, there are jobs available in that role also. Somebody has more creative tendency, there are roles available in that also. So we need to, it's not that we have to reject our mind completely. It's not that we suppress our mind. But once we identify, okay, this is the way my mind works, then we can deal with it. So then the pessimism, it's increased because of 2 reasons. One is that our vulnerability to danger is far greater than our capacity for pleasure. If we miss pleasure, okay, we miss something. If we miss danger, we can die. And the second is, nowadays, we have many intangible dangers. Like somewhere, some change happens, and because of that, we end up have a prices of everything increase or lose our job. That's why our mind tends to be more negative. And the last part was spirituality. So spirituality, what is it? It is, that is, many people think it's just about a destination. Destination is, yes, when I practice spirituality, I will feel good. But there is a very important process that we need to get to it. So we cannot have a meditation helmet, because that is not taking us through the process. It's like taking pain medication, feeling good. So what is that process we discussed? If we consider in our inner world, the soul, there is the mind, and there is God. Now, of course, there is the body. So, if in the normal setup is like this, so in the unspiritual or the non-spiritual state, what happens? The soul is small. The soul is small, the mind becomes very big, and God also becomes very small. Then the mind story, whatever it is told, that just becomes our story, and we get overwhelmed by it. But when we are spiritual, the soul is here, the mind becomes smaller, and then God becomes big. Then what happens? Our connection with God, that gives us stability, that gives us security. So if our mind is giving us a distorted picture of things, the mind is a discourager, then God is our encourager. And over a period of time, at least we will stop taking the mind so seriously. We'll take God more seriously. And after some time, the mind will itself stop its unhealthy tendencies. And then we can all become that fresh inner disposition. We can actually create a better life. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments?
Hare Krishna Guru, thank you for the wonderful lecture. We are very grateful for your. So my question is, when you told we start bhakti, Lord, greater than our minds. But how we will know that God is sending this message? Mind is interpreting, mind is always interpreting. But how is it that this is Lord instruction to us and
Okay, so when I said that, if God becomes bigger, but even God's message comes through the mind only. So how do we know? Well, I'm talking more about the broad presence rather than necessarily a specific message. It's like, say, if we are going on a dark hole and we see some person who looks like a big robber or big Gunda or something like that, we may feel a lot of fear. We feel some fear. But behind that person, we see there's a powerful, well-equipped, with a gun, there's a police person out there. The police person doesn't have to speak anything to us, but just their presence calms us. So, similarly for us, yes, there be a state where Krishna can speak to us from inside also. But we don't have to necessarily reach that level of mystical awareness to experience peace. Just the more we practice bhakti, just that sense comes that there is a bigger reality. And yes, whatever is happening in my life, that is true, but this is temporary. This will pass. There is a more enduring reality just there. And just dwelling on that reality, it helps us become calm. So, when the mind is telling us a story, okay, this has gone wrong, that has gone wrong, now everything is going to go wrong. Just we chant, we do some kirtan, we take some deep breaths, we pray, we start experiencing that, okay? And I do this, I still experience some calmness. I experience some divine presence. I experience some strength. So, this is not, whatever has happened is not the end of the world. Okay, it's happened. It's something which is not so good. I'll deal with it. So the problem is not that the mind is present or that adverse problems are present. The problem is that the mind exaggerates, it distorts. So just the remembrance of Krishna, it's not necessarily that Krishna has to speak anything to us. Just the remembrance of Krishna helps us to calm down. Okay. This is a problem, but and like suppose somebody has lost 10 rupees and they think I have lost 10 lakh rupees. Now our reaction if we have lost 10 rupees, it's not about to lose any money. But 10 lakh rupees is we will kill someone. How did I lose this money? It will be far more reaction. What happens? Every problem, every loss, our mind makes us think this is like a loss is going to end my life.
So that kind of catastrophizing of every problem, that we don't do that. So there are two distinct words. When there is a problem, on one side, we may catastrophize. We have heard of catastrophe. Catastrophe means some big disaster. So catastrophize means, in this problem means everything is lost. But instead of catastrophize, contextualize. Contextualize means, okay, in this particular situation, this happened. And yes, I have faced problems in my life. If we think about 1 year before, to what extent we remember, was there any problem troubling me? Yes, if I think probably there was some problem troubling me at that time. And at that time I thought if I don't deal with this, my whole life will be ruined. We go back 2 years before also, it was like that. So problems are there, they have to be dealt with. But the mind's catastrophizing of the problems is also what needs to be dealt with. Yes, please.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Because you can speak out.
Yeah. Hare Krishna Prabhu. One of my very close college friend, in fact, my only college benchmate, he is suffering from a great loss, and means my problem is that I am fearful that he might identify himself purposeless at this point and also may consider himself as a loser. As a person, he is very underexpressive and also very introverted kind of person. So he is not
For the first year, is a very
underexpressive, means he is a very introverted person. So I am confused with what I should do in this situation. Should I just tell him, or should I tell him to be towards the spiritual, to look at this thing as with a different matter, or should I give him his personal time?
It's a difficult situation that he's in, and it's difficult if somebody is introvert or underexpressive. It's difficult to help them also. At the same time, there are two things which we can do. Generally speaking, when we go through life, now we look for gifts in life, what things work out for us. Okay, I got this opportunity, I got this job, I got this relationship, whatever. We look for gifts in life, and they're important. But actually, it's far more important is the gift of life. And our body is so vulnerable that one bug from inside or one bang from outside can destroy our body. And whatever be our age right now, some of you will be 20s, some will be 30s, 40, 50, whatever. Whatever be your age, you all probably know some people who died before they came to your age. So if we are alive, that itself means there is more right than wrong in our life. If our heart is still beating, if we are still breathing, that means God is not yet done with us. There is some purpose for our life. So in that sense, when we talk about positive thinking, there are different ways in which you think positive. But at a fundamental level, we need to be able to look for what is right in our life. Okay, there are many things you're wrong, and we don't want to deny that they are wrong. But we want to look for what is right in our life. And now, when we want to look for what is right, so one is that I'm alive. That is itself right. But after we look at life, the gift of life is there. After that, we need to look for some ability that we have. Now what happens? We often evaluate our life in terms of achievements. And we fail to achieve certain things. And they are both this. But achievements take their own time. Sometimes you may have a good seed, but the rains may not come, floods may come, and from that seed we may not get any fruits. But we still have the seed. So look for the ability that we have. That is one way to see positive. And then third is that one of the strongest ways one can increase one's will to live, will to continue on in life's struggles is that if we feel that we can make some contribution, not necessarily achievement, but contribution. That means achievement is where the world recognizes, oh, you did something special. Contribution is where we are able to do something of value. So, the idea is maybe if you know that person, talk with them about some incidents in their life, when just by their existing, by their acting, by what they did, they made a positive difference in someone's life. So, if you consider these three things, the gift of life, the gift of ability, the gift of contribution, we all have lacks with us. So, that is actually for each one of us, when life discourages us, it is for us to encourage ourselves. And then, in the worldview that that person may have, it may be a negative worldview, but still within that, help them to see some ability that they have. Help them see not that in the future they will make some contribution. See, it is what happens, instead of ability, we start looking for achievement. Yes, now ability should translate to achievement, that is true. But achievement requires many other factors beyond ability itself. Somebody may be a good batsman, but if the pitch is bad, or if everybody else gets out, then you can't do anything. So now there's a time to look for achievement, but look for ability. And often we evaluate our work in terms of recognition. And then sometimes we will be doing good work, but the world will not recognize us. So we look for contribution. If we do this, everybody, in whatever situation they are in, they can get that sense of positivity, which will enable them to move on in life. Any other questions? Let me know when to stop here. Okay, one more question. Any of the ladies have questions? Yes, please. Thank you.
When we start something, we feel excitement, but after some times we feel some kind of mental resistance, and during that resistance, if we are trying to continue, I become fearful, like whether I am able to continue or not, and so how to overcome this?
Okay. Starting something is very easy, but then to continue it on consistently, we start feeling resistance from it. What do we do? I think that's the thing which all of us face. That, and as an author, he says that every author dies with ideas of many books. Isn't it? I had written this. All of us have ideas which we don't implement. So what can we do about it? I don't think there's an easy answer because each mind is different. It's like, say, our mind is like a child. Now, somebody who will become a parent, they can read as many books about parenting as they like. Or if a child starts crying, how to pacify the child. But at the end of the day, there's no formula. Isn't each parent has to experiment and find out what works with their child. So like that, our mind is like that. Each one of us has to find out how to get to work with our mind. But there are some broad principles. So, the three things help when there's a long road to success. When you have to do something, but the success is not going to come immediately. So how do we persevere in the long road to success? The first thing is that we need to get some intrinsic pleasure in it. Intrinsic joy. That means the joy is not just when I get there. There has to be, of course, when you get there, there's a special joy. But there has to be some joy in just the journey itself. There's a Nobel laureate author, he said that, I love being read, but I love even more having written. So if somebody wants to go up and climb Mount Everest, Now it's going to be very difficult. But if that person hates nature, then it's like till you get to the Mount Everest, you're going to hate every moment in it. But if you love nature, you like to be close to nature, then every step along the way also is a joy. That's why there is this whole system of Varnashram. In Varnashram, what happens is not simply dividing society into castes. It that engage people according to their nature. So what we are doing, we get some intrinsic joy. So if somebody likes music, I want to become good at music, it may take months or years. But still I like playing music. Even if I am not good at it, I just like doing it. So there has to be some intrinsic joy. That's very important. The second thing is that we should not devalue small steps. This is among all the factors that contribute to depression. I'm not talking about clinical depression, but general depression. People who tend to get depressed, they all devalue small steps. And this is sometimes, as devotees, in the name of humility, we start devaluing things. Know that small steps do matter. So, if, say, suppose I decide I'm going to do for 1 year, I'm going to do something. But if you're able to do it for 5 days and 6 days you fall, you're not able to do it. Okay. If you did for 5 days, give yourself credit for that. Appreciate that. So don't devalue small steps. This is a surefire way to make sure that you fail. That is devalue small steps. And this is a typical character of Tamoguna. Don't devalue small steps. So small steps do matter. Most success is evolutionary before it becomes revolutionary. Evolutionary means small growth is happening. We don't even see any huge signs of growth. But the small steps are not small. They are significant. It's evolutionary before it becomes revolutionary. So don't devalue small steps. And third is that nourish the intelligence. Nourish the intelligence means what? See, basically, like earlier I said, that, how should I put it? That our mind gives a particular story around every event that we experience. So the Gita says that many of the best things in life, they are like poison in the beginning, but they will be like nectar in the end. So now, I said that sometimes we feel excited about doing it because it's new, so we feel like doing it. But once we are in this poison phase, our experience is poison. Hey, this is so difficult, I will keep doing it. But it is our intelligence which will tell us there is going to be nectar for this. So that's why we need to regularly nourish our intelligence. Intelligence means it helps us to see that this far-sightedness, that what will come in the long run. And once we do that, then we will be less severe. Okay? Thank you. Yes, where is, okay, where is the mic? Yes, please. Can you get the books here, Prabhu? Dinesh Prabhu? Yeah. What is the purpose of this life? Well, there are two aspects to it. One is universal and the other is individual. What I mean by that is that if you consider there's a mountain and there's the ocean. So now when the river moves toward the ocean, all rivers have one universal purpose. That is to go to the ocean. But while they are going, each river finds its own path towards the ocean. And while the river is going towards the ocean, that river provides life-nourishing water to so many life forms along its banks. So similarly, for us, so the purpose is both universal, means we are all spiritual beings. We are all parts of God. We are all eternal. And we are all ultimately meant to return back to God.
That is the universal purpose of life for everyone. And there is an individual purpose of life. So the individual is the path we take toward the ocean. So that is determined by our talents, our interests, our resources. So that is something which we have to determine. So what is the purpose of my life? It's to use the gifts that I have been given in a mood of service, in a mood of contribution. And thereby, ultimately, I reach God. So what we have is God's gift to us. What we do with what we have is our gift to God. So what we have is our gift to God. So you could say the first purpose of life is to discover what we have. Now often what happens, we are constantly comparing with others. Oh, this person is smarter than me, this person is fairer than me, this person is taller than me. We are only comparing others and thinking about what gifts we don't have. But just what do we have? So discovering those gifts and then developing those gifts. So what we have, that is how the river finds its path towards the ocean. So that way, both life has a universal and individual purpose. Okay. Yes, where's the mic?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, I really liked how you put everything in a small annotations, and that really helps to clarify things. My question is many of the times when we face problem, at least my approach is I mostly tend to choose the flight approach in those problems. Like I used to go away from those problems, and when situation so happens that I cannot go away, the fight becomes so much intrinsic, it becomes so drastic that the problem becomes more bigger in the way. And most of the times, like you draw that graph, right? So most of the times, I believe I does not give much reaction to much problems, but sometimes it's just so happens that the reaction is so large that it covers the whole previous effects, which I'm not giving the reaction to.
So, when faced with problems, either we try to run away from the problems, or then we deal with them. It becomes a very bitter and severe fight, which creates further problems at times. Yes, I think these are not uncommon ways of dealing with it. Because quite often, for each one of us, when we go through life, let me put it this way, when I'm going through life in a particular direction, for all of us, some obstacles do come up. And it is not the problems themselves that are the problem. It is how strong is our purpose. If somebody goes from India to America for study, and then maybe they experience loneliness, they're away from their family, away from their friends, and their studying is not so easy. They'll experience many difficulties. The problems are there. But then, I've got this opportunity, my parents have paid for the study, I've taken loans, this is important, I like the subject, I'm interested, I want to build a career. So in general for us, there is the sense of purpose that helps us move forward. And there are problems that make us stop. So, now the whole question is our purpose bigger than our problems? And now sometimes it may not be. Let's say, okay, I want to go to meet some friend. And you just want to spend some more time with it. But you're going to meet your friend and there's a big storm along the way. There is absolutely necessary to go to meet the friend, I go some other time. But the problem is so big, the purpose is not that big. But suppose some family member has a health crisis and they got a big surgery. And we need to be there. And there's a storm. Say, I want to go there. So rather than focusing on the problem and how we deal with the problem, we need to focus on the purpose. Okay, what is really important for me? So purpose, what do we mean by purpose over here is what really matters, what is important. That is what is largely indicative of our purpose. So if we are only focusing on problems, then the entire life becomes an exercise in problem minimizing. But no matter how much we minimize our problems, what happens? Some problem or the other will always keep coming. So that's why Krishna says this world is dukkhalaya. And dukkhalaya means this world is a place of distress. Now that does not mean that we are always being distressed and keep suffering. The point when Krishna says this world is dukkhalaya is, don't make your decisions simply based on avoiding distress or avoiding problems. Like Arjuna saying, if I fight, there's a problem. If I don't fight, there's a problem. I think if I don't fight, there's a smaller problem, so I'll not fight. So, but if we are all that we are doing in life is avoiding problems, we will never be, what is become happy in life, small problems will become very big for us. That's why focus on a purpose. And then, okay, what is important for me? How do we decide that? Maybe decide that, okay, in 6 months, what would I like to do? In 1 year, where would I like to do? In 5 years, where would I like to do? Now, we cannot always be sure where we'll be in 5 years, but at least some understanding of a direction we have. So, the purpose is what is important. Try to focus on what is your purpose, and then how we deal with problems will fall in place. Sometimes, okay, this problem has come, better let me move on. I don't need to deal with it. Sometimes, okay, this problem has come, I have to deal with it, but I have to remember, I don't want to die fighting this problem. I want to get this problem out of the way so that I can move on with my life. So, what is that saying? That if you have nothing to fight for, if we don't have anything to fight for, then we will fight for anything. It's not that we won't fight. If we don't have something big in our life, any small thing will become big and we'll start fighting over it. So that's why this extreme of flight and fight, it is not big enough to fight, forget it. How dare this mother do this? I'll fight all this. That's why focus on what is really worth fighting for now. And then the fight or flight response, you'll be able to moderate it appropriately. Okay, last question.
Namaste, Guruji. As you mentioned earlier, there are some events in life, right? So at times when what is the event about, the question comes like, why this happened to me, why this event came. So people often attribute it could be your karma, which is karma, or your destiny or bhagya, right? And I just want to know that whether these two things are different. If क्या कर्म भाग्य से अलग है, और अगर आप कोई कर्म कर रहे हो तो आपको कैसे पता चलेगा कि this is the right one or this is the wrong one, and who is going to tell us? So that cognizance in somebody, how it's going to be. So I think that's mostly what I want to ask.
It's impossible to answer this in short, but okay, I'll try to answer it. The question is that if we face something, is it because of karma or bhagya, and are they two different? Well, the word karma has 4 different meanings, and people often use the meanings interchangeably. It's ARCS, is the word around arcs. Karma can refer to the action we do. Sabko karma karna zaruri hai. Karma can also refer to the reaction that we get. हमारे कर्म का फल हम भोगत रहे हैं. We are suffering. Now karma can also refer to the connection. The law of karma. Law of karma means action will lead to reaction. That connection जो है, that is also called as karma. And then karma also refers to selection. That means we should select our karma carefully. This is used often in the sense of dharma, do the right thing. So karma can mean all these different things, and in what context we are using, it is important. So when we say is it bhagya and karma? Bhagya means destiny. So basically, when I am going through life, this is not my first life, I had a previous life. And when I enter into this life, there is a karma cloud above me that accompanies me throughout my life. And from that karma cloud, rains keep coming down. So one major shower from it comes at my birth. Now some of it may be positive, some of it may be negative. Maybe we are born in a wealthy family, but maybe there are a lot of quarrels in the family. Maybe we have health, we have good looks, but maybe we don't have the child like you, or whatever. Then after that also, throughout our life, sometimes positive, sometimes negative situations keep coming. So that is the idea of karma. In terms of the past karma's reaction coming to us. So this is often called as bhagya, or destiny, or kismet, or dying, or whatever word you use for it. So now, apart from that, there is our present action that we do also. This is the action that we need to select. So in one sense, we are always doing karma. But are we doing good karma? Are we selecting our karma? Say if you are driving a car on the road. Now we are driving, that is karma. But if you want to get to a particular destination, maybe a lot of traffic, there are 3 routes. Which route should we take? Should get as fast as that. That's a selection. So now as far as the selection of karma is concerned, that when we are doing a particular karma, so that karma in terms of action, there is a moral dimension to it and there is a functional dimension to it. Moral dimension means there are certain actions which are right and certain actions which are wrong. Like papa and punya we talk about it. So for example, meat eating involves killing of animals, or intoxication involves putting poison into our own body. These are activities which are from a moral perspective wrong. So that is, we study scripture, and through scripture we develop our sense of the moral dimension of karma. But the functional dimension of karma, we have to understand with our intelligence. So intelligence means that, okay, if I'm working in a particular job, then now should I develop this skill or should I develop that skill? So that's something which you practically it's not a bad karma if I develop good. Both are skills you have to develop. And now some new software, should I use, if I go to use AI, should I use ChatGPT or should I use Gemini? There's no karma involved in that. Or you can say whatever karma is involved, very similar. But there is a functional perspective. Okay, what do I want to do? What are its strengths? So that is practical intelligence we need to use. So in that sense, karma is something which is practical. There's a moral dimension and there's a functional dimension. The functional dimension is where we learn how best can I play my role effectively. So that is something which we develop by, if we study Shastra and we come more to Sattva, we'll be able to also develop that sense of clarity or intelligence about how to move ahead. So thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Prabhupada ki
Jai.
Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki
Jai.
Gaur Vrinda ki